No!
Oh my God, bro.
Oh, hell.
Cheetos mac and cheese.
Empower your students at every stage of the
He needs some milk.
You always hear a lot of weird stories about Walmarts. At least, I always have. People are always complaining about how the stores are creepy, or they saw some crazy person inside of one. I never experienced anything like that, though. I never really used to shop at Walmart that much anyways. Just every now and then when it was convenient. That all changed, though. After that night, I've never gone back to a Walmart again. It started when I got off work one night to find that it was raining pretty hard outside. I hated driving in the rain, so I was pretty annoyed by it, especially because I'd been planning on buying some last-minute groceries after work. I was hosting a girls' night, and I still needed a couple of things. I decided that I would just stop off at a Walmart close by and grab the stuff. I didn't want to drive any further than I had to. When I got to the Walmart, I tried to find a parking space close to the front, but of course they were all full. I had to park a good ways away from the building and walk through the rain to get inside. As I approached the Walmart door and tried to shield myself from getting too wet, something crazy happened. Out of nowhere, I saw a woman come screaming and running out of the store like a psycho. I stopped and watched as the woman ran off into the parking lot, still screaming as she went. It was incredibly unsettling to hear someone in that much distress. For a moment, I contemplated going inside. I wondered if there could actually be something horrible. After a few seconds, I decided that the woman was probably just crazy. I had just experienced my own weird Walmart story to share with my friends later on. The thought reassured me and I headed inside. I grabbed a shopping cart from the front and quickly headed over to the grocery section. I only needed things, but I still wanted to hurry to make sure I got home in time. While in one of the aisles, I suddenly felt something wet dripping on me. While in one of the aisles, I suddenly felt something wet dripping on me.
What the hell?
I wiped it off immediately, confused. Whatever it wasn't water. I figured it was probably just rain mixed with nasty ceiling mold or something. I looked up to see if I could find where it came from, but I didn't notice anything. I assumed it must have just leaked from a hole or a crack in the ceiling. It was probably just best to ignore it and move on. So I picked up the item that I had been looking for and headed to the next aisle. I was just trying to figure out what kind of chips I wanted, when the same thing happened again. I felt something wet drip on my head. I wiped it off and noticed that it was a much larger amount of the wet substance this time. It was really gross. I still had no idea what it was either, but I was getting pretty weirded out at the idea that something was dripping on me from multiple different places in the store. It didn't seem very likely. After I finished wiping the stuff off, I moved to the next aisle and continued shopping. Several minutes went by, and then once again, a substance dripped on me.
Okay, what the hell is going on?
I was pretty annoyed by that point. What were the odds that something had dripped on my head 3 different times? I frustratedly started wiping it off as I looked up and tried to figure out where it could be coming from. I still didn't see any sign of a hole in the ceiling or anything like that. As I wiped the stuff, I looked closer and realized that it was some sort of white substance. It couldn't have been rain or mold. I still didn't know what it was though. It smelled absolutely disgusting, like piss or something. The more of it that I wiped off, the more I got grossed out. There was quite a bit of it on me this time. It had even dripped off of my head onto my shirt. After several minutes of wiping, I finally got it all off of me and decided that I would get the hell out of there before any more of it could get on me. As I turned around, I happened to look up at the top of the aisle shelf, only to see the creepiest man that I'd ever seen staring back at me with a crazed smile on his face. Then, to my horror, I watched as the crazy-ass guy squirted a tube of white substance directly at me. I was immediately covered in it. It was disgusting. I continued to scream as I ran to the front and begged the Walmart staff to help me.
Please, you have to help me. There's a man squirting stuff at me in the aisles. He's insane.
At first, the staff thought I was the crazy one, but I eventually got
Pause! What is that?
got them to believe me, and they sent security to find the man. He was detained after they caught him in another aisle trying to squirt the same substance on a different woman. I got a good look at the man as security dragged him back to the front. He was so creepy looking. As they brought him past me, he looked at me again with that same crazed smile. Come on. You know you wanted it. The police later came and arrested the man. He was identified as a man named Timothy, who was notorious for harassing women around the area and for squirting his bodily fluid on women around Walmart. I now know why that woman had come running out of the store like that. I've been traumatized by the whole ordeal ever since. I still can't get over the fact that he did that to me 4 times. I don't even know what would have happened if I hadn't caught him. I haven't been to Walmart again, though, just in case there are more out there like him. This story was inspired by
For most people, Father's Day is a fun time where people remind their dads how much they mean to them. But for me, it's just a reminder of the hell that I went through. I lived with my parents back then. They had a decently large house, so there was plenty of room for me, and they didn't seem to mind that I hadn't moved out. All of my siblings had already left, so it was just me there with my parents. I honestly felt like an only child half the time because my siblings never visited, and we weren't very close. Of course, I wasn't very close with my parents either. Even though I lived with them, I still felt like I barely spent any time with them. My mom would always be at work or with friends. I was usually just at home with my dad. Not that he was ever around me either. He was always building and doing construction in the basement, as he was renovating it to lease for tenants whenever he was finished. I was even less close with him than I was with my mom. He was very standoffish and always acted like I was a nuisance. Sometimes, I would offer to help him with whatever he was doing, but he always told me to F off. Usually, I just left him alone. Then one year, Father's Day was coming up. I decided that I should try to do something to connect with my dad for once. So one night, I decided to ask my dad if he needed any help, as he was always working in the basement when he got home from work and barely slept.
Hey, Dad, do you need help with anything?
He looked especially bad that night, like he hadn't slept in days. His face was haggard and his eyes were bloodshot.
You want to help me?
I had expected him to just tell me to leave him alone like usual, but this time he seemed almost excited.
Everything is almost ready. I just need to install one more door.
I told him that I was happy to help him, and I was excited to see how everything looked, so he took me downstairs. When we entered the basement, the first thing I remember noticing was how unfinished it looked. It didn't look even close to being ready for someone to live down there. There was dust and debris everywhere. I honestly struggled to see what my dad had even been doing for so long. The only thing that made it look like he had done anything were the doors. There were a bunch of them, one after the other. I felt strangely nervous, but I slowly followed my dad as he led me through the weird twisting hallways. We must have walked through 7 different doors, each leading deeper into the surprisingly large basement, before my dad finally stopped. We had finally made it to the door frame that still needed the door installed. My dad had told me to hold the heavy door in place while he screwed it on. I struggled to keep it steady, but I didn't want to say anything. I was just glad that he was finally letting me help him. When he had finally finished screwing on the door, he took a step back, and I let go of the door. My dad swung it back and forth a couple of times to make sure it stayed put. Then he looked up at me and said,
You know what would make this Father's Day really special?
No. What?
For you to be my lab rat.
Then out of nowhere, my dad grabbed the door and slammed it on my face, trapping me in the cellar.
Dad? Dad! What are you doing?
I couldn't understand if it was a prank or not. I was freaking out though. I started banging on the door wildly as he laughed like a psycho on the other side. After that night, the next 24 years of my life would be a living hell. I was trapped in a house of horror. I literally became his lab rat. He kept me in that same room at all times, never letting me out for even a second. He would bring me just enough food to keep me alive, but it was hardly anything. For the next 24 years, I lived as his slave. Every day he would use me for his needs. It was like he had never even been my father. He was able to convince my mom that I had run away to join a cult. He even forced me to write several letters to make her believe that I was okay. My mom totally bought the story, so no one ever came looking for me. During my imprisonment, I would birth several children. I never got to keep them for long though. He would take them away from me almost immediately and pretend that I had left them on the front porch for him and my mom to take care of. It was horrible. After the first year, I surrendered to the idea that I would never get away, and I probably would have been right if it wasn't for one of the babies. All those years later, I finally convinced the monster to bring myself and one of the kids to the hospital because the baby was sick. He must have thought that he had broken me completely, because he didn't even seem afraid that I would try to run away. When I got to the hospital, I got the chance to tell them what was going on. They called the police and arrested him immediately. He was charged not long after. I was finally free. Ever since then, it's been hard for me to get used to having a normal life again. I'm traumatized by every Father's Day now. I don't see him as a father anymore though. To me, he's nothing but a monster. This story was inspired by the most evil father that we had to feature. Him in the Father's Day video. We featured him in a past video but wanted to revisit his heinous crimes. The man we are referring to is Josef Fritzl. Josef Fritzl's notoriety began in 2008 when his daughter reappeared 24 years after she went missing. She had spent those years locked in the cellar below the Fritzl family home in the city of Ostend, Austria. Fritzl kept his daughter Elizabeth locked in the cellar from when she was 18 until she reached the age of 42. Trapped underground and enslaved, she was tortured and abused thousands of times by her own father, which resulted in the birth of 7 children. Fritzl started building the cellar stretching below the house and the garden years before he took Elizabeth into captivity. He asked for his 18-year-old daughter's help to hang the final door, then held an ether-soaked cloth to her mouth and locked her in the cellar. Elizabeth had run away before, and while her mother filed a missing persons report, Fritzl's story that she had run away to join a cult was easily believed. He forced his daughter to write letters supporting the story. While 3 of the children were kept in the cellar, 3 others would quote-unquote appear near the house with notes purportedly from Elizabeth, saying she could not take care of them. They were raised by Fritzl and his wife Rosemary. In 2008, Elizabeth's 19-year-old daughter became ill. After Fritzl took her to the hospital, police issued an appeal for Elizabeth to come forward. In the week following, Fritzl released Elizabeth from the cellar and the police were alerted to her reappearance. When they questioned the now 42-year-old, she revealed that she had been held captive for more than 2 decades. Fritzl was then immediately arrested and jailed for life in 2009.
Camera on, light on. Here we go. That.
technician on the night of August 8th, 1953. Is this correct?
Yes, that is correct.
What can you tell us about the incident in room 24?
I was in my office finishing up charts for the day. I heard screaming. I ran out and Dr. Reynolds. Oh, Jesus.
Where was Dr. Reynolds?
He was everywhere. On the ceiling, on the floor, the walls.
Where was asset 0235?
That thing is no asset. It's a monster. We created a monster. Oh God, what have I done? We are not safe here.
Dr. Miller, the asset has been contained.
You don't understand. This facility, not just things inside of it, it's all evil. I need to leave.
Ma'am, you need to go down to the lab and do final analyzations.
No! I will not go down there. You can't make me.
Doctor, I assure you.
I can't go down there. I won't go down there.
Calm down.
Laboratory log. Who's there? Ooh!